The Deep Space Monitoring Station at the edge of Confederation territory had been quiet for 3,000 years. Lieutenant David Chen stared at his display screen, certain his equipment was malfunctioning. The readings couldn't be real. "Commander Walsh," he called out, his voice tight with disbelief. "You need to see this." Commander Sarah Walsh crossed the cramped control room in 3 quick steps. She was a career military officer who had seen strange things in her 20 years of service, but nothing had prepared her for what appeared on the sensor display. "That's impossible," she whispered. The quantum barrier around Sol system was flickering. For 10,000 years, Earth had been surrounded by an energy wall that no ship could penetrate, no signal could cross. The ancient precursors had built it before they vanished from the galaxy, and it had remained perfectly stable ever since. Until now. The barrier pulsed once, twice, then collapsed completely. Walsh activated the emergency communication array. Within hours, every major power in the Galactic Confederation would know that humanity's prison had finally opened. Captain Marcus Blake received the news while his exploration ship was docked at Nexus Prime. The tall, weathered officer had spent his career mapping unknown regions of space, but this assignment felt different. Dangerous. "Sir, the Council has approved our mission," reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Emma Foster. She was young, ambitious, and completely unaware of why the older officers looked so worried when discussing Earth. "Gather the crew," Marcus ordered. "We leave for Sol system immediately." As their ship moved through hyperspace, Marcus reviewed the limited historical records. Most files about humanity were classified or had been mysteriously lost over the centuries. What remained painted a confusing picture of a species that had made first contact with the galaxy 10,000 years ago, learned everything they could about alien technology and culture, then been quietly sealed away by the precursors. No one alive knew exactly why. The journey to Sol system took 4 days. When they dropped out of hyperspace at the outer edge, every member of the crew gathered around the main display in stunned silence. Earth's solar system was not the primitive backwater they had expected. Mars glowed with the green light of artificial atmospheres and sprawling cities. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, was covered in massive domed settlements. The asteroid belt buzzed with mining platforms and processing stations. Earth itself was surrounded by orbital habitats that dwarfed the largest space stations in Confederation territory. "How is this possible?" Emma whispered. "They've been cut off for 10,000 years. Before Marcus could answer, their communications officer spoke up. "Sir, we're being hailed. It's coming from Earth." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a human face that looked remarkably similar to the ancient records. The man appeared to be in his 50s, with gray hair and intelligent blue eyes. He wore a simple uniform without obvious military decorations. "Greetings, friends from the Confederation," the human said with a warm smile. "I am Admiral Robert Hayes of the Terran Defense Coalition. Welcome to Sol system. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine at those words. Something in the man's tone suggested this meeting was not the surprise it appeared to be. "Admiral Hayes, I am Captain Marcus Blake of the Confederation Exploration Service. We weren't expecting to find such an advanced civilization." Hayes chuckled, and the sound was genuinely pleasant. 10,000 years is a long time, Captain. We've kept ourselves busy. Perhaps you would honor us by accepting an invitation to Earth? I believe there is much we can learn from each other. Within hours, Marcus found himself aboard a human shuttle, watching Earth grow larger through the viewport. The planet looked healthier than most worlds in the Confederation. The oceans were crystal blue, the continents showed careful balance between cities and preserved wilderness, and the orbital traffic moved with precision that spoke of advanced planning. Admiral Hayes sat across from him, making polite conversation about the journey and expressing genuine curiosity about developments in the galaxy during humanity's absence. But Marcus noticed how the man's questions always seemed to focus on military capabilities, trade routes, and political structures. "Tell me, Captain," Hayes said as they approached Earth's atmosphere, "how has the galaxy fared without us? Any major conflicts? Technological breakthroughs we should know about?" Marcus provided basic information, but something made him hold back details. The Admiral listened with the intense focus of a student taking notes, occasionally asking follow-up questions that revealed surprisingly deep knowledge of galactic politics. The shuttle landed at a spaceport that was larger and more advanced than anything in Confederation space. Humans moved through the facility with quiet efficiency, and Marcus noticed that many of them paused to study his alien features with curious but not unfriendly eyes. During the formal welcome ceremony, Marcus met other human leaders. Dr. Helen Carter, their chief diplomat, asked detailed questions about trade agreements between different species. General Patricia Stone inquired about military protocols and defense strategies. Engineer Michael Thompson wanted to know about recent advances in faster-than-light travel. Each conversation felt casual and friendly, but Marcus realized the humans were conducting a systematic intelligence-gathering operation disguised as polite curiosity. That evening, as he stood on a balcony overlooking a human city that glowed with clean energy and showed no signs of poverty or conflict, Marcus made a disturbing realization. These people had spent 10,000 years in isolation, but they hadn't simply survived or even thrived. They had prepared. Admiral Hayes joined him on the balcony, offering a cup of tea that tasted better than anything Marcus had experienced. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Hayes commented, looking up at the stars. "We've missed those stars, Captain. We're very much looking forward to rejoining the galactic community." "I'm sure the Council will be pleased to welcome you back," Marcus replied carefully. Hayes smiled that warm, friendly smile that never quite reached his calculating eyes. "Oh, I think we'll fit in perfectly. After all, we've had plenty of time to figure out exactly how to be helpful." The words were pleasant, but they sent ice through Marcus's veins. Dr. Catherine Mills had spent 15 years studying precursor ruins, but she had never seen anything like the sealed vault beneath the Great Library on Nexus Prime. The door had remained locked for millennia, its ancient mechanisms refusing to respond to any known technology. Then, 3 days after humanity's return to galactic society, it simply opened. Catherine stood before the entrance with her research partner, Dr. James Wright. The vault was small, containing only a single crystalline data core that pulsed with faint blue light. When they connected it to their translation equipment, the first words that appeared on their screen made Catherine's hands shake. Final Archive of the Precursor Council. Emergency Classification. Subject, the human problem. James leaned closer to read over her shoulder. The human problem? What does that mean? Catherine continued translating the ancient text. What she read made her stomach turn cold with fear. Personal log, Counselor Zalmen, Standard Galactic Year 7834. The humans have been with us for 50 years now. They learn everything we teach them, but they learn too well. We showed them our medical technology, and within 10 years they had developed cures for diseases we thought were impossible to treat. We shared our engineering knowledge, and they built ships that surpass our finest vessels. They are not just students anymore. They are becoming our superiors. Catherine paused in her translation. This was not the history the galaxy had been taught. According to official records, humanity had been quarantined because they were dangerous and aggressive. These files suggested something entirely different. She continued reading. The humans ask such innocent questions. They want to know how our governments work, how we make decisions, how we resolve conflicts. They study our psychology, our culture, our weaknesses. They say they want to understand us better so they can help us. And they do help us. Every suggestion they make improves our society. But I am beginning to fear their kindness. James was reading the next section. His face had gone pale. Catherine, look at this. The text described a meeting between precursor leaders and human representatives. The humans had politely requested access to the Great Archives, claiming they wanted to study galactic history. When the precursors agreed, thinking it would help the humans integrate into society, they discovered that humanity absorbed the knowledge with frightening speed. Within 1 month, Catherine read aloud, the humans had memorized the complete military histories of 47 civilizations. They studied our greatest victories and our most terrible defeats. When I asked their leader, Ambassador Thomas Clark, why this knowledge interested them so much, he smiled and said they wanted to learn from our mistakes so they could help us avoid future conflicts. Catherine saved the file and moved to the next entry. This one was written by a different precursor, someone called Architect Veltar. The humans have been teaching our children, the text began. They volunteer in our schools, offering to share stories about their homeworld. But I have been watching them, and I see what others miss. They are not just telling stories. They are studying how our young minds work, learning what motivates us, what frightens us, what makes us obey. The entries became more urgent as Catherine continued translating. The precursors had slowly realized that humanity was not just learning about galactic civilization, they were learning how to control it. The humans have no armies, wrote Counselor Zalmen in a later entry. They need no weapons. They conquer through gratitude. Every world they visit becomes more efficient, more peaceful, more prosperous. But the local leaders start making decisions that favor human interests without even realizing it. The humans plant ideas so skillfully that we think these thoughts are our own. Meanwhile, on 12 different worlds across the galaxy, human diplomatic missions were conducting their own version of historical research. Ambassador Helen Carter toured the Central Archives on Vorthak Prime, asking detailed questions about ancient trade routes and resource distribution. Her assistant, Dr. Lisa Parker, took careful notes while local officials eagerly shared classified economic data, proud to educate their helpful human visitors. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, human engineer Michael Thompson studied manufacturing processes with the enthusiasm of a gifted student. He made small suggestions that increased productivity by 30% within the first week. The factory managers called him a genius and begged him to stay permanently. Dr. Catherine Mills continued reading the precursor records, and each entry made the situation clearer and more terrifying. We tried to limit their access to sensitive information, architect Veltar had written. We told them that some knowledge was too dangerous for any one species to possess. The humans thanked us for our wisdom and said they completely understood. 3 days later, they presented us with solutions to problems we hadn't even told them about. They had developed the restricted technology independently, and their versions were superior to ours. The final entries in the archive were desperate messages from the precursor leadership. Emergency Council Session 847. The humans must be contained. Not because they are evil, but because they are too perfect. They solve every problem, heal every wound, answer every question. They are making themselves indispensable to our survival. If we allow them to continue, they will not conquer us through war. They will absorb us through kindness. The quantum barrier is complete, read the last entry. We have sealed Earth away from the rest of the galaxy. The humans accepted their isolation with grace, thanking us for giving them time to think and grow. Those were their exact words. I fear we have not built a prison. I fear we have built them a classroom. Catherine sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. James was staring at the screen in horror. They weren't quarantined to protect the galaxy from human aggression, Catherine whispered. They were sealed away to protect the galaxy from human competence. At that moment, her communication device chimed. A message from the Nexus Prime Council requested her immediate presence at a meeting with the Human Cultural Attaché, Dr. Amy Rogers. The message mentioned that Dr. Rogers was very interested in learning about precursor history and had some helpful suggestions for improving archaeological research methods. Catherine's hands trembled as she prepared to meet with the human representative, knowing she was about to become part of the very process the precursor records had warned about. The Zerati Empire had terrorized the galaxy for over 800 years. Their massive black warships appeared without warning, destroyed entire colonies, and vanished before any defense could be mounted. When their invasion fleet of 300 vessels dropped out of hyperspace near the mining colony of Haven's Rest, everyone expected another massacre. Admiral Patricia Stone watched from her flagship as the Zerati formation spread across space like a dark cloud of death. Her Confederation fleet had 43 ships, but they were mostly patrol vessels and cargo haulers. Against the Zerati war machine, they would last perhaps 10 minutes. Admiral, her communications officer called out, "We're receiving a transmission from the human patrol squadron." Stone turned to see the image of Admiral David Cooper on her main screen. The human looked calm, almost relaxed, despite facing impossible odds. Behind him, she could see the bridge of his ship, where human crew members worked with quiet efficiency. "Admiral Stone," Cooper said with a friendly smile, "would like to help with this situation, if you don't mind." Stone stared at him in disbelief. "Admiral Cooper, the humans have exactly 3 ships in this system. The Zerati have 300. This isn't a battle you can win." Cooper's smile widened slightly. "With respect, Admiral, we've had 10,000 years to think about better ways to handle conflicts. May we demonstrate?" Before Stone could respond, the Zerati fleet began its attack run. The massive alien vessels accelerated toward Haven's Rest, their weapons charging with a distinctive red glow that meant death for millions of colonists. "All human ships," Cooper announced calmly, "implement Protocol 7. What happened next defied everything Stone knew about space combat. The 3 human vessels, small and seemingly fragile compared to the Zerati dreadnoughts, began to move through space like dancers following a perfect choreography. They didn't flee or take defensive positions. Instead, they advanced directly toward the enemy fleet. The Zerati opened fire first. Hundreds of plasma bolts and missile streams filled space with deadly light. But somehow, impossibly, none of them found their targets. The human ships moved between the weapons' fire with precision that suggested they knew exactly where each shot would be aimed before the Zerati even fired. How are they doing that? Stone's tactical officer whispered. Cooper's voice remained calm over the communication channel. The Zerati have been using the same attack patterns for 8 centuries, Admiral. They're quite predictable once you study their methods. The human ships reached the outer edge of the Zerati formation and began their counterattack. But instead of using massive weapons or overwhelming firepower, they deployed something far more elegant and terrifying. Each human vessel projected a field of energy that seemed to reach out and gently touch the Zerati ships. One by one, the alien warships simply stopped. Their engines went quiet, their weapons powered down, their communication arrays fell silent. They hung motionless in space like sleeping giants, completely helpless but apparently undamaged. The largest Zerati dreadnought, a ship that had destroyed 12 worlds in the past year, drifted helplessly as a human patrol craft no bigger than its gun turret positioned itself nearby. Zerati vessel Death's Edge, Cooper announced, his voice broadcasting on all frequencies. Your crew is safe and your life support is functioning normally. However, your weapons and engines are temporarily disabled. We suggest you use this time to consider whether there might be better ways to resolve disputes. Admiral Stone watched her tactical display in stunned amazement. In exactly 17 minutes, 3 human ships had neutralized the most feared military force in the galaxy without causing a single casualty. The entire Zerati invasion fleet hung powerless in space, their crews alive but their ships as helpless as children's toys. Admiral Cooper, Stone called out, her voice shaky with disbelief, what did you do to them? We disrupted their quantum field generators, Cooper replied casually, as if he was discussing the weather. It's a technique we developed during our isolation. Rather destructive methods seem so wasteful, don't you think? This way, everyone goes home safely. On the lead Zerati dreadnought, Commander Vextar stared at his dead control panels in confusion and growing fear. For 8 centuries, his people had been the apex predators of space. Their technology was advanced, their tactics proven, their reputation built on countless victories. Now they sat defenseless, overcome by 3 small ships from a species they had never heard of. His communication array crackled to life, and he found himself speaking directly with Admiral Cooper. Human, Vextar snarled, though his voice carried less menace than usual, what do you want? Surrender? Tribute? The location of our homeworld. Cooper's reply was genuinely puzzling. Actually, Commander, we were hoping to talk. You see, the Zerati have tremendous potential as a civilization. Your engineering skills are remarkable, and your organizational abilities are quite impressive. We think there might be ways for your people to achieve your goals without all this unpleasant violence. You mock us, Vextar growled. Not at all, Cooper said sincerely. We're simply suggesting that there might be more efficient methods. For instance, the resources you spend building warships could be used to develop technologies that would make your worlds more prosperous. Instead of taking what you need by force, you could trade for it. Other species would be happy to exchange goods and knowledge with the Zerati if they weren't terrified of being attacked. Despite himself, Vextar found the humans' words strangely reasonable. The Zerati Empire did spend enormous amounts of resources on military campaigns. And it was true that many worlds contained resources the Zerati needed, but military conquest was expensive and often destroyed the very things they wanted to capture. You would help us with this? Vextar asked, surprised by his own interest in the idea. Of course, Cooper replied warmly. That's what civilized species do for each other. They help solve problems. Admiral Stone watched the conversation with growing amazement. Somehow, in the space of one brief discussion, Cooper had transformed the galaxy's most feared military commander into something resembling a reasonable negotiating partner. The recordings of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had lived in terror of Zerati raids watched in awe as humanity demonstrated power beyond imagination, then used it not for conquest but for peace. But the truly terrifying part, Stone realized as she reviewed the footage later, was how natural it all seemed to the humans. They had disabled the most dangerous fleet in the galaxy as casually as one might help a neighbor fix a broken fence. Dr. Catherine Mills sat alone in her research lab, staring at the final precursor archive with tears streaming down her face. The last entries in the ancient database revealed a truth so disturbing that she had sent her assistant James away, unable to bear having another witness to what she was about to discover. The final log entry was dated just 3 days before the quantum barrier around Earth had been activated. It was written by architect Veltar, the precursor leader who had designed humanity's prison. Personal log, final entry, Catherine read aloud to the empty room. The humans came to thank us today. They knew about the barrier before we announced it. Somehow, they always know. Catherine paused, wiping her eyes. The text continued with growing desperation. Ambassador Thomas Clark brought gifts, technological improvements to our barrier design that would make it more efficient and comfortable for them. He said the isolation would give humanity time to grow and learn. When I asked what they planned to learn, he smiled that terrible, kind smile and said, how to be better neighbors. The next entry made Catherine's blood run cold. We are not their jailers. We are their teachers, and our lessons are almost complete. Every attempt to limit their growth has only made them stronger. When we restricted their access to military technology, they developed better weapons within months. When we tried to keep them from studying our government systems, they created political theories that made our own leaders obsolete. The humans don't resist our control, they absorb it, improve upon it, and give it back to us as a gift. Catherine scrolled to the final paragraph, her hands shaking. The barrier activates tomorrow. The humans have retreated to their world willingly, eagerly even. Clark told me they were grateful for this opportunity to prepare properly for rejoining galactic society. I fear we have not built them a prison. We have built them a school, and we have been their professors. In 10,000 years, they will emerge, and we will discover what they have learned from studying us. May the cosmos forgive us for what we have created. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human diplomatic missions were conducting their own research into galactic history. Ambassador Helen Carter stood in the central archives of Vorthak Prime, surrounded by thousands of historical documents that local officials were eager to share with their helpful human visitor. These records of the trade war of 4523 are fascinating, Carter said to her Vorthak guide, Director Kelran. Your people showed remarkable resilience in overcoming economic sanctions. How did you manage to maintain public support during such difficult times? Director Kelran beamed with pride. Our ancestors were wise. They focused on internal development and found new ways to produce what they needed locally. But enough about ancient history, perhaps you could share some insights about human economic systems? We're always eager to learn more efficient methods. Carter smiled warmly. Of course. We've developed some interesting approaches to resource distribution during our isolation. I'd be happy to share them with your economic council. As Carter spoke, she made careful mental notes about Vorthak psychology, political structures, and social weaknesses. Every question she asked was designed to reveal information that could be useful later. But her genuine friendliness and helpful suggestions made the Vorthak officials feel like they were gaining valuable knowledge from the exchange. On the industrial world of Kepler-7, human engineer Michael Thompson was conducting a similar information-gathering operation. He walked through manufacturing facilities with local supervisors, asking detailed questions about production methods while offering improvements that increased efficiency by remarkable margins. Your people are truly gifted, Thompson told plant manager Zara Nix as they watched newly optimized assembly lines produce goods at twice their previous speed. With small adjustments like these, Kepler-7 could become the most productive world in this sector. Manager Nix glowed with pride. We're so fortunate to have your expertise, Mr. Thompson. Perhaps you could review our other facilities? We have 17 more production centers that could benefit from your insights. Thompson agreed graciously, knowing that by the time he finished his inspections, he would have a complete understanding of Kepler-7's industrial capacity, resource supplies, and economic vulnerabilities. Dr. Catherine Mills continued reading through the precursor files, each entry painting a clearer picture of humanity's true nature. The ancient records described how human diplomats had slowly, systematically studied every aspect of galactic civilization during their brief period of contact 10,000 years ago. They learned our languages perfectly, one entry noted. But more than that, they learned how we think, how we make decisions, what motivates us to act. Human psychologists studied our emotional responses with scientific precision. They catalogued our fears, our desires, our cultural blind spots. They claimed this knowledge would help them serve us better. Another file described how human scientists had absorbed technological knowledge at an impossible rate. We shared our medical technology freely, wrote a precursor researcher. Within 1 year, the humans had not only mastered our techniques but had developed improvements we hadn't imagined. When we asked how they achieved such rapid progress, they explained that they had spent considerable time analyzing the underlying principles and finding more elegant solutions. They seemed genuinely puzzled that we hadn't thought of these improvements ourselves. The most chilling entry came from a precursor military advisor. The humans have no interest in conquest through violence, the file stated. They conquer through competence. Every problem they solve makes us more dependent on them. Every crisis they resolve makes us more grateful for their presence. They are transforming themselves from guests into essential partners, and we are helping them do it because their help is so genuinely valuable. Catherine closed the archive file and sat in silence for several minutes. She now understood why the vault had opened only after humanity's return. The precursors had programmed it to reveal their warnings only when it was already too late to act on them. Across the galaxy, human advisors continued their patient work. Dr. Lisa Parker improved agricultural systems on farming worlds. Engineer Robert Hayes redesigned transportation networks on trade planets. Diplomat Sarah Foster mediated disputes between species with solutions so elegant that everyone involved praised her wisdom. Each human contribution made galactic civilization more efficient, more peaceful, and more prosperous. But it also made the galaxy more dependent on human guidance, more grateful for human assistance, and more willing to accept human suggestions about how to solve future problems. Catherine realized that humanity had spent 10,000 years in isolation not as prisoners, but as students preparing for their final examination. They had studied every aspect of galactic civilization through the precursor records, analyzed every weakness and strength, and developed perfect solutions to problems that wouldn't arise for millennia. Now they had returned, and their test scores were perfect. 1 year after the quantum barrier around Earth had collapsed, Captain Marcus Blake sat in his quarters aboard the orbital station above Nexus Prime, trying to write his final report. The words would not come easily because he was attempting to describe something that should have been impossible. The galaxy had never been more peaceful or prosperous. The Zerati Empire, once the terror of civilized space, now operated the most efficient shipping network in 3 sectors under the guidance of human logistics advisor Thomas Clark. The ancient blood feud between the Vorthak and Nexian peoples had been resolved through a cultural exchange program designed by human diplomat Helen Carter. Famine, poverty, and disease were becoming things of the past as human innovations spread from world to world. Every species in the Galactic Confederation praised humanity's generous leadership and begged for more human advisors to help solve their remaining problems. But Marcus understood the terrible truth that his own government refused to acknowledge. The Confederation Council now met twice weekly with their human cultural attaché, Dr. Amy Rogers, and implemented her suggestions with such enthusiasm that they had forgotten these policies weren't their own ideas. Trade agreements were restructured according to economic models developed by human theorist Michael Thompson. Military protocols were updated based on strategic frameworks designed by human tactical advisor Patricia Stone. Not a single decision of galactic importance was made anymore without human input. And the most disturbing part was that every decision improved life for billions of beings across known space. Marcus activated his personal communication device and called his old friend, Dr. Catherine Mills. Her face appeared on his screen, but she looked tired and worried despite the academic honors that had been showered upon her for her work with human archaeological advisors. "Catherine, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest," Marcus said quietly. "Do you still control your own research, or do you just think you do?" Catherine was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Yesterday, I spent 6 hours discussing precursor ruins with Dr. Lisa Parker. She had such wonderful suggestions for improving our excavation techniques. By the end of our meeting, I had completely redesigned my research program based on her advice. The new methods are absolutely brilliant, Marcus. But I can't remember whose idea they really were." Marcus nodded grimly. "Yesterday, Admiral Hayes suggested some modifications to our patrol routes. The changes will improve security efficiency by 40% while reducing fuel costs. When I asked my staff what they thought, they said it was obviously the right decision. But I can't shake the feeling that we're not making these choices freely anymore." On Earth, human children attended schools that had been transformed beyond recognition during the year of isolation. 10-year-old Emma Foster sat in a classroom filled with holographic displays showing detailed information about every known alien species. She and her classmates were learning to speak Vorthak with perfect pronunciation, studying Nexian cultural psychology, and memorizing the economic systems of 12 different civilizations. When their teacher, Ms. Jennifer Walsh, asked Emma why she was working so hard to learn about alien societies, the young girl looked up with bright, eager eyes. "Because we want to help everyone become their best selves, Ms. Walsh. That's what good neighbors do for each other." Ms. Walsh smiled proudly at her student's answer, never noticing the careful calculation behind Emma's innocent expression. The child had already identified 3 potential improvements to Vorthak trade policies and 2 solutions to ongoing resource disputes on Kepler-7. Like all human children, Emma was being prepared to serve as a future advisor to species that didn't yet know they would need her help. Marcus continued his conversation with Catherine, both of them speaking in coded language because they suspected their communications were being monitored. "Have you noticed that our leaders seem different lately?" Marcus asked. Catherine nodded. "More decisive. More confident. They make better decisions than they ever did before. It's like they've become improved versions of themselves." But are they still themselves? Marcus wondered aloud. The question hung in the air between them, unanswered and terrifying. Meanwhile, in the Confederation Council chambers, the galaxy's most powerful leaders were meeting with their human advisors to discuss the next phase of galactic development. Ambassador Robert Hayes presented a comprehensive plan for educational reform that would create standardized learning programs across all member species. Dr. David Cooper outlined military restructuring that would make interstellar conflicts impossible while maintaining perfect security. Engineer Sarah Foster described technological sharing agreements that would accelerate scientific advancement by centuries. Each proposal was met with enthusiastic approval from council members who genuinely believed these ideas represented their own enlightened thinking. Council leader Zelfar of the Nexians raised his hand to speak. "These proposals are exactly what our civilization needs. How fortunate we are to have such wise human friends to help us realize our full potential." The other council members nodded in agreement, their faces showing the contentment of people who had found perfect solutions to problems they hadn't known they had. Marcus finished his report as the station's artificial night cycle began. He wrote carefully, knowing that his words would be reviewed by superiors who might already be under human influence. Status report on human integration. Humanity has successfully rejoined galactic society and has proven to be invaluable partners in maintaining peace and prosperity. Their contributions to science, diplomacy, and social development have exceeded all expectations. Crime rates have dropped 90% across Confederation space. Military conflicts have ceased entirely. Economic inequality is being systematically eliminated. Every objective measure indicates that human involvement has created the most successful period in galactic history. He paused, then added his final assessment. However, it must be noted that humanity's success appears to stem not from conquest or coercion, but from their remarkable ability to make themselves indispensable. They have become the galaxy's caretakers, solving problems we didn't know existed and guiding us toward solutions we couldn't have imagined alone. The most troubling aspect is that we are genuinely better off under their guidance. They have saved us from our own worst impulses and given us a peace and prosperity we never achieved independently. Marcus hesitated, then wrote his final line. Perhaps this is what true leadership looks like, so competent and beneficial that resistance becomes not just impossible, but undesirable. We have not been conquered. We have been improved. And we are grateful for it. He submitted the report and sat back, wondering if he had just written humanity's greatest victory or the galaxy's most elegant surrender. Outside his window, Earth hung in space like a blue jewel, beautiful and perfect and patient, while its children worked tirelessly to help their galactic neighbors become the best versions of themselves.